Welcome to the Further Light Podcast, presented by Wisconsin Freemasonry, helping you accomplish your Masonic goals through education and more light. And now, I present to you, Brother Chris Ludke.
Listeners, scholars, brothers, this is Brother Chris Ludke, and today I'm here to explore, 5 brutal truths. These are things that I picked up in conversation, a couple of conversations I've had with a couple of brothers as well as some students about when we're talking about religion and philosophy, looking at these sort of universal ideas and how we would apply them Masonically, because I think they are important. I think they do rest at the base of much of our ritual, many of our lessons. Now, every Mason is a seeker in some form. We come to Lodge to learn how to live better, not easier, rather better, truer lives, seeking the truth, which, as we know, is not always the easiest thing to do. The craft doesn't promise comfort. It promises light, and light can be blinding. Today, we're looking at 5 hard truths that every man, especially every Mason, must confront if you want to live really a well-lived life. These lessons come from philosophy, from religion, and from psychology. I'm kind of mixing different ideas. And to be clear, this is entirely me just riffing on a topic. This is not really well organized. I do have my list in front of me, but it's not based on any one person, and it is entirely an interpretation, an opinion. This is not the 30,000-foot view. This is not necessarily sanctioned by a Grand Lodge or anything like that. But I believe that you'll find all of these lessons are echoed in the symbolism of our own ritual and in the working tools of Masonry. And again, to be warned, these are not gentle truths, but they are liberating ones. Truth number 1, you are not your passions, and your passions will deceive you. When we come into Masonry, we are in darkness. We are neither evil nor are we enlightened. Instead, we're simply unaware. The darkness represents the confusion of the inner man, a man ruled by his passions, his fears, and his desires. The first great task of a Mason is self-mastery. We are, of course, told to subdue our passions. Interestingly, we are not told to destroy them. Why? Because the passions are not the enemy. They're the rough edges. The work is to shape them, to form them into harmony. Ancient philosophers taught the same truth. The Stoics argued that emotions are nothing more than judgments. They're not facts. Buddhism teaches that the self is not fixed, that it's simply whatever decisions you make in the moment. Modern psychology calls it emotional regulation, but the message is really identical. Your feelings are not reality. They're nothing more than signals, and sometimes they lie. It reminds me of when I'm racing, when I'm doing my crazy long kayak race. I'm paddling for 40 hours, and for example, I'll be paddling and suddenly my shoulder hurts, and it's nothing more than a message. Pain is a message, and I have to interpret it. Is this a minor thing that's going to go away in the next half mile? Is this something that is serious? And it's how I handle the message that determines everything else that happens after it. And emotions are very much the same thing. They're nothing more than messages. They're telling you, hey, this thing is happening. But then we take emotion to be fact. We go, but I'm angry about it. Well, no, your anger is really recognizing an injustice. And the question is, what are you going to do about the injustice? Just being angry about it is not going to fix anything. When you mistake your emotions for truth, you act from ignorance, and the inner temple remains unfinished. The square and compasses remind us to bring our conduct and our desires within due bounds. The mind that observes itself clearly without surrendering to passion is a mind that can be guided. That's really what we're aiming for. A mind that can stand as an outside observer, recognize those emotions, and recognize when it's time to simply let them go. Recognize when it's fundamental attribution error. Hey, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. It has nothing to do with all of these irritating things that other people did. I'm reading the irritation into what they did. I'm creating that situation. Truth number 2, comfort will ruin you faster than pain ever will. We often speak of building character as our true labor, but no stone is polished without friction, and no soul is perfected without trial. Every tool we use, the gavel, the chisel, the trowel, implies effort, discipline, and discomfort. The process of squaring our lives to virtue is not easy. The man who seeks only comfort will forever remain a rough ashlar. Modern culture seeks to help us avoid struggle, but Masonry reminds us that struggle is sacred. When we face adversity with patience and courage, we are testing the strength of the foundation we've laid. Pain reveals what comfort conceals. It's why some people go out and run marathons or do crazy long kayak races. We want to see what we're made of. We want to see what happens when all the stress is laid on us and there's no other option but to continue. And it's very interesting from a historical perspective. A lot of the ideas, the things that we see today, the psychological issues that we see today don't exist when you go back to, for example, World War II Denmark or World War II Belgium or France. You don't see these issues in a war zone. Why not? Because there's so much other stress going on. You can't worry about all of these other things. The hashtag first world problem that was going around for a long time really does have a bit of truth to it. The rough ashlar becomes the perfect one through repeated blows. Likewise, the mason becomes upright and true through discipline and honest labor upon himself. It takes effort, my brothers, to be able to improve yourself. We can't focus on being comfortable. We can't focus on, well, if I just do this, then I can relax. That's not how life works. The Lodge teaches us to welcome challenge, not flee from it. Every trial is an invitation to grow, and only through such labor can we hope to be fitted for that house not made with hands. Let's talk about truth number 3. You are responsible for everything in your life, even the things that aren't your fault. Responsibility is the backbone of Masonic virtue. The ritual doesn't allow for excuses. Mason stands upright, answers for himself, and acknowledges his own actions. We live in an age that glorifies blame, but the Mason's path is the opposite. It's a path of accountability. We are taught to take responsibility for our conduct, our words, even our thoughts. The working tools symbolize this. The plum teaches uprightness, the level equality, the square morality. None of these tools function in the hands of a man who blames others for his misfortune. In other words, a victim mentality is quite possibly the worst thing that can happen. And I said, you're responsible for everything, even those things that are not your fault. Let's take an example. I have ADHD. This is not shocking for anyone who has talked to me for more than 34 seconds. But while it is not my fault, I did not create it, nothing I did caused it, it is my responsibility to deal with it, to do everything I can to make sure that it doesn't impact on other people's lives. And so while it's not my fault, it is my responsibility. And this applies all over. Responsibility isn't necessarily guilt, it means power. It means that even when the world acts unjustly, we retain sovereignty over how we respond. We have agency, we have control. The wise Mason remembers that the master within must rule over the chaos without. As the charge reminds us, we are to act upon the square. We are to keep a tongue of good report. We are to maintain silence when required. All of these are acts of self-governance. The world will never be fair. It just isn't. That's not how life is set up. But our goal is not to control the world. It's to control ourselves. It's to recognize those things that we cannot control and only seek to control those things that we can. Truth number 4. Meaning matters more than happiness. Every degree in Masonry is a journey towards meaning. Every symbol points not towards pleasure, but towards purpose. Every one depicts a sense of work, something that we have to do, rather than something we can be comfortable with. Most people do not seek happiness in the lodge. They seek light. And they learn that happiness is fleeting, but purpose endures. Masonry gives him that purpose, to build his inner temple, to serve humanity, and to live in harmony with the universe, with our fellow man. Philosophers and psychologists tell us the same thing. Meaning sustains us when pleasure cannot. It gives weight to our suffering and direction to our effort. That's why our ritual places so much emphasis on duty. Duty to God, to our neighbor, to ourself. Duty is not always pleasant, but it is always meaningful. It ties the individual life to something greater, more enduring. Happiness comes and goes. In fact, you can argue that happiness as a goal is horrible, because to be happy is also to be sad. You can't understand happiness without sadness. You can't understand light without understanding darkness. And so by pursuing happiness, we simply pursue a fleeting moment. When we pursue meaning, doing something truly meaningful with our lives, whether it's in the lodge, at home, or at work, it gives us purpose, and that brings contentment. And contentment, I would argue, is more powerful than happiness. It's far less fleeting. It can exist for long periods of time, and it's that warm feeling that you're doing right by the universe, right by your family, right by your community. If we're to take our obligation seriously, we step into this sort of current of meaning. We live not for temporary happiness, but for alignment with the grand architect's design. Happiness will come and go. Meaning will carry you through every dark night of the soul. Even in your worst moment, if your meaning comes from a specific thing, that thing is still there. Even in the most depressed moment, the darkest moment. And so it can help pull you out. Whereas a hope of happiness is nothing more than a hope. And while it serves its purpose, it's not going to pull you out of the darkness. Truth number 5. You will die, and almost nothing you worry about will ever matter. The Masonic journey ends in contemplation of morality. When we look at the lessons of Masonry, they are very existential. They are questioning why we exist. They're trying to get us to think about what we do, not only moment to moment, but day by day and throughout our lives. We are reminded that life is a preparation for death, and only what is built upon virtue will endure. The symbols of the grave, the acacia, and the resurrection all point to this single truth. Life is brief. The knowledge of mortality is not meant to terrify, but to awaken. The Mason who remembers that his time is limited begins to live intentionally, with purpose. He wastes less, loves more, forgives faster, and labors with purpose. So this memento mori, this remembrance that you will die, is not just a Stoic phrase. It's a Masonic one in spirit. Every initiation, every degree is a small death, a letting go of ignorance, ego, and illusion. When we internalize this truth, fear loses its grip. What remains is gratitude, humility, and courage, the virtues that can make a man truly free. Think about it this way. The laziest person on the world would be a vampire. They can binge watch Netflix and it doesn't matter because they know they're going to wake up tomorrow. But if you live your life knowing that you have a limited amount of time, whether it's 100 years or 10, you're more likely to make decisions that are going to lead to that purpose-driven life. You're more likely to learn to subdue your passions. You're more likely to develop many of these lessons. And this is something that I've talked about on here before. The lesson is not what's going to happen after. The lesson is for the living. We don't do funerals for the dead. They're dead. They don't care. We do them for the living, that they may have lessons to carry on. And that's very much what we're doing there. So let's gather these truths and bring them back to the craft. First of all, you are not your passions. You need to learn self-control. You need to learn how to shape those passions. Those passions may be the thing that gets you to write the book, the novel, maybe create a great work of art, a beautiful piece of music, build an addition on a house, whatever it is. But it's shaping it that's important, not letting it run off with you. Comfort will destroy you. You need to learn discipline and labor. Comfort is the enemy. There's a reason the Stoics used to teach that every so often you should sleep on the floor or sleep outside, away from every comfort, because it's a reminder of what you have, and you will find far greater happiness in the things that you have. It creates acceptance. You are responsible for your life. This is, after all, the foundation of moral conduct, the plumb, the square. You are responsible for shaping it. You have agency. You have control to some degree. And so for those things that you have control over, take responsibility for them. Don't sit there and say the world is something that happens to me. That's horrible. It's very common in today's world, but it's a horrible way of going through life. Because at the end of the day, it takes away any and all agency, any and all responsibility, any and all control. And do you want to live that life? Meaning outweighs happiness. Whether that's a search for light through Masonic education, whether that is a search through other education, proving yourself in other ways, or maybe through your vocation. Maybe that meaning comes through volunteer work or philanthropy or any number of other things. Find meaning for your life, because that meaning will bring contentment, which is far longer lived than happiness. And death is your final teacher. At the end of the day, remember, your days are limited. You don't have an unlimited amount of time to binge watch Netflix. Yes, Daredevil is awesome, but is it really the thing you need to be doing? Try and find focus. Yes, there's time for rest. I will grant you that. But does rest require 8 hours a day, 6 days a week? Or is that binge watching actually stopping you from resting, stopping you from developing those 3 key physical elements of everyone's life, which are sleep, exercise, and diet? If you control those 3 things, you will control a great deal of your physical existence. The path, when stripped of ornament, is a practical philosophy for living wisely. It doesn't promise protection from suffering. It teaches you how to suffer well and how to turn that suffering into wisdom. It's often the part that we miss. Every person in darkness seeks light, but few understand what that means. Light is not ease or comfort or praise. Light is awareness. It shows you what you are. It gives you that third-party perspective of yourself and what you must become. And that what you must become will change throughout your life. And that's fine. That's reasonable. That's acceptable. If you stop growing, you will stagnate. And that's not a great place to be. As Masons, we're builders of the inner temple. These truths are our blueprints. Subdue your passion. Embrace labor. Accept responsibility. Live with meaning. Remember death. And if you do, you will not merely live, you will build. You will raise a structure of character and faith that neither time nor trial can destroy. My brothers, as I said, this is not coming from any specific area. These are just common features that you find in religion, philosophy, and psychology, things that I've had discussions with people over the years, and I just felt like putting this together in a way that gives you one form of meaning. This may be drivel to you, and that's fine. Or maybe one part of it speaks to you and you start exploring it. And that's fantastic, because that's pretty much my goal. Brothers, go out, and live your life. Until next time, thank you for joining me, Brother Chris Leakey, and the entire Further Light team on your quest to find more light through Masonry.
Are you interested in learning more about Freemasonry in Wisconsin? Visit wisconsinmasons.org to learn more about Masonry and access further educational content and more light. Once again, that address is wimasons.org. Any questions, comments, or suggestions, please email us at education@wisconsinmasons.org. And thank you for listening.